Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. Here we go with Tilly's 2024 Trans Rep in Media Part 3 TV Part 2. We finish our discussion on Trans Rep on complete seasons of TV that I saw last year and look at the overall numbers and see how they stack up to my past 2 annual reports. Spoilers abound! Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation. Oh no, I forgot to write a new one for you, Susan Bridges. I looked at the script and that's A1. Oops.
That's okay, babe.
Well, and one more time, our returning guest is Jessie Earl. Welcome back yet again, Jessie.
Hello. Let's do this. Let's bring this thing to a conclusion.
Okay, but before we do, if you had one piece of advice for people just starting their transition, what would it be?
My biggest thing that I always say is give yourself grace and give yourself time to not judge yourself too much. I mean, I remember when I was early in my transition, I had so much anger and self-hate, even at that point, because it was sort of like, oh, I'm not transitioning fast enough. Oh, I'll never look like how I want to.
Yeah.
I'll never be who I want to be. Oh, I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it badly. And I ostracized myself from some friends because of just the feeling that I was having.
Oh, yeah.
So I always want to tell people, when you're first starting transition, give yourself grace, give yourself time, and the thing I always find is that transition takes longer than you want it to, but less time than you think it will. And because there's just I sort of started off on our first podcast we recorded way back a few weeks ago. Well, a few weeks for listeners, for us only a few hours ago, where I was talking about the mundanity of what my life is now and how that's a really beautiful thing in its own right. It's you will get there, and you will get those moments of oh, this is my life now. And, sadly, society will try to tell you that, you need to be thinking about it constantly. This is who you are, and all that nonsense. But, you will get to this place and just give yourself the grace to exist in that and to be an imperfect human being. You're allowed to be an imperfect human being, and it's an imperfect thing. And transition is meant to be a transition, and life itself is a transition as well. So just give yourself grace, I think, is the big thing.
Yeah, that's all beautiful. And, I think related to that also is don't compare yourself to other people in their transitions, because transition is different for every single one of us. And we all have our own paths, and our bodies react differently if you're doing medical transition, and everything goes on its own timeline. And you can't even look at somebody who came out or started medical transition at the same time as you and say, but I'm not where they are, because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
That way just lies madness. Don't do it.
And two things with that is one, our society wants you to constantly be comparing and feeling like you're not enough.
Right.
And that's how it sells things to you. We live in a very corporate culture. So it's oh, well, you don't look like this, so you need to buy the right clothes, spend all this money or do this thing or whatever. It tries to sell you that narrative of this is the way to be and exist. And so there's that element of it. And then two, you're your own person and your own journey is your own. And I'm not going to lie and say that I've not had moments of man, I'm not doing as good as this person, both as a trans person transitioning or as a professional, comparing myself professionally to someone else. But we are all on our own journeys. We're all doing our own thing. We all have our own successes and defeats. And probably the people you're comparing yourself to also probably are dealing with similar, if not worse or different things, So it's all our own journeys that we're going through. So yeah, I think it goes to that same thing of just give yourself grace and understand that you have your own journey. So
absolutely. And try to do that in all aspects of your life, just outside of transition too. It can be really hard to give ourselves to treat ourselves with the same kindness that we show to our friends and people that we love. So that's a really important thing for people to try to do, I think.
It's almost as if being trans is just one way to be human, and the things
Hold
that we
on.
deal with in our transition are just things that everyone deals with in their life,
Breaking
just no
news.
specific way. I know, shocking. What a wild concept.
Who would have thought? All right, a reminder that we will get into talking about overall totals and comparisons this week, so be sure you've heard 2024 Transrep in Media Part 1 Movies in Episode 97 and 2024 Transrep in Media Part 2 TV Part 1 in Episode 98. All right, on we go. My Adventures with Superman Season 2. 1. In one episode, there is a Metropolis's Most Eligible contest, but note it doesn't say Bachelor or Bachelorette. And one of the finalists is non-binary and has they-them pronouns. Even though they have no lines, it was nice to see.
I will say I met one of the creators of this show. One of the nice, like I got to see Shakespeare in the Park with them. One of the nicest human beings. And this show is adorable and amazing and very
It
sweet.
is. It's wonderful. Only Murders in the Building Season 4, 0. Okay, this one got rough, which is really sad because this was my warm comfort show. This was the worst offender on trans jokes that I saw all year. Past seasons, mind you, were not like this. Did something change behind the scenes? Did some transphobe got more power or something? I'm so baffled. This season, there are a set of sisters called the Brothers Sisters, which is supposed to be a joke, but why is that funny? Because they're called brothers when they're sisters, right? Which is half a step from a misgendering joke. They also both kind of have deep voices. They make a point that one is really strong. They dress weird. Nobody wants to be around them. And in flashbacks to college, they're both kind of wearing suit coats. And I'm just saying that all of that sure is a big coincidence, isn't it? I'm counting their entire concept as a joke at our expense, and their portrayal as another joke that's a dig at trans people. For a while, Oliver impersonates a Midwestern grandma to spy on his girlfriend on Instagram, and he affects a voice for her, and they sure didn't pick a Midwestern grandpa for him to impersonate, did they? More of, quote, men acting like women is funny. So this sweet show I adored is now up to 3 jokes at trans people's expense. Episode 5 has a very bad pronoun joke. Charles is telling a story about their mystery killer and starts off saying he or she, and then says, quote, I'm just going to stick to male pronouns because it's easier even if it's not accurate, which is exactly what transphobes do to us all the time. The same episode has an Ace Ventura joke with the movie mentioned by name, and if you're not familiar, that movie is horribly transphobic. It makes a mockery of trans women and hits almost every bad trope about us. And then this episode also has a Harry Potter joke, which is, of course, always awful because of its creator, J.K. Rowling, who might be the world's biggest transphobe and uses her billions to try and strip our rights away. A horrid pronoun joke that's in line with what transphobes say, an Ace Ventura reference, and a Harry Potter joke, and all in one 22-minute episode is like a transphobic hat trick. What the hell?
I will say, too, like, even in things that have nothing to do with trans people, anything that makes a Harry Potter reference in this day and age, too, I always am like side-eyeing at this point.
Right?
Like,
You have
I get
to
it.
know. How do you not know?
Yeah, it's like I get like it's a cultural touchstone, and so like if people reference it casually, I'm like, but like I'll at least give it a pass because like it's such a cultural touchstone for our generation specifically too. But like when it's a TV show and you set up those lines and you write those lines and you choose to select those lines, that is willful ignorance at best and signaling other leanings at worst. So like yeah, I always side eye it, like even if there's nothing else trans going on in a show, and it's very, very disturbing.
In a brief scene, Paul Rudd's character, who has an outrageous fake Irish accent, calls another man lassie for lulz, I guess, another misgendering joke. I am so mad and disappointed. But don't go blaming the cast for this. They likely don't even know that so much of this season was stealth transphobia right under the surface. You don't see it until you see it, you know? But this was a show that was so dear to me, and have it repeatedly make a mockery of my existence hurts like hell.
It was so cringy, too.
Yeah.
Like, every time, you're just like, really? Again, the whole, this is just a lazy joke.
And the show is so funny and so smart every other season.
Right?
Like, you're so much
You're
better
so
than
much
this.
better than this.
What are you doing?
I agree completely with it. And also weird, too, with like the sisters, brothers thing is like the
Yeah.
directors in Hollywood, which is also kind of like weird because like they're played as like, oh, they're indie directors getting this big thing, And yeah, but like trans people aren't really getting that much, and so it's like weird to play them as like this weird joke who, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there with them that I really don't like.
Yeah, exactly. Orphan Black Echoes, Season 1, 0. The show is set in the 2050s, and a teen girl is bored by a, quote, cis-het relationship, which isn't really anything to talk about, but it's so rare to actually hear the word cis-het in anything, I thought it was worth a mention. In the finale, a bad guy calls Kristen Ritter dude, but I don't know why. Is this a deliberate misgendering of a cis woman, or is it just words for men are okay to use for everyone thing our society does creeping in again? I do not know.
Those are weird too with this one, because like the original from Black was like one very kind of early trans rep in time, and complicated feelings on that one too.
Yeah,
because it's
the cis woman playing a trans man.
Yeah, cis woman playing a trans man, and then also sort of like that. The implications of the show are weird because it sometimes implies like that, like it's just environment that causes people to be trans or queer in an implying kind of way, which I have. The show has some nuances to it, so I don't want to say it's like, just outright condemnable, but it's like there's weird
complex
stuff. It's weird stuff with that first show, and I like the first show, at least the first.
I did too. Yeah. Quantum Leap Season 2. 2. Ian is still in the main cast, a non-binary character played by non-binary actor Mason Alexander Park, who remains fantastic. There's an episode with a non-binary character named Dean, played by non-binary actor Wilder Yari, who wears a makeshift binder and comes out to their family, and it also includes discussion of what non-binary means and they-them pronouns. It is set in the 1950s, so the characters didn't have that terminology but learn it from our time-traveling lead, Ben. This episode was written by Shakina, who wrote the super trans episode of this show back in Season 1, and it is, again, fabulously done. Be sure to check out episode 7 of this podcast for my interview with Shakina when we talked about that episode with her. Along with Heartstopper, the Quantum Leap reboot was one of the bright spots of Transrep in television each year. It has sadly since been canceled, so Transrep may be taking another nosedive next year.
I also got to talk with Shakina. Loved that episode. And this show, yeah. I'm so upset that this show got canceled. Like, it was such a fun show, and I think it was so cool to like have just an episodic kind of series like this again that featured trans people. Like a lot of the shows that we discuss are often like streaming shows or prestige shows, which again I like. But it's nice to have like a show that's just like on TV, just part of the like we have like 20 episodes a year sort of thing, and we do these like fun sort of like adventures, kind of like what Star Trek was back in the day, or like a bunch of those shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like with Joss Whedon aside.
He's a whole thing on his own.
Before the unpleasantness, of course. Have to do a People's Joker reference.
Yes.
But yeah, so like it was just nice to have like such a prominent non-binary rep on a show like that, and then to have episodes where it would go into that, and have episodes like last season 1 where it was like trans people in sports, like going headlong into that discussion. It was such a nice thing, and so for it to get canceled was really kind of that. Honestly, it was one of the more upsetting ones this year for me to see it get canceled. So yeah.
And that's one of those places where we got that great trans rep because they put a trans writer on staff and listened to her when she told them, how to get it right. So that's so important.
Yeah.
Resident Alien Season 3, 0. There's a lady alien with wings and feathers that keeps getting called a quote-unquote bird lady or a quote-unquote bird person, and she says, my noun is avian, which is just another weird recycled pronoun joke. Shrinking Season 2, 0. In one episode, the lead character Jimmy wakes up screaming from a nightmare, and someone overhears and says they heard, quote, an old lady screaming. Yet another anything feminine associated with a man is funny joke. Also, a cis woman tells another cis woman she has to sack up and do a thing she doesn't want to, but it's not a joke or anything. It's just another instance of the way our society says it's cool for women to say and do stuff men do, whereas the opposite is to be derided and laughed at. In another episode, a cis woman says to a cis man friend, suck my D, you big dumb bitch, and it's played for laughs. It's a joke. Ha ha, women with penises are hilarious. I'm so tired. In another episode, a gay man and his husband are thinking about adopting a kid, and someone says, Jimmy's having a baby. And a guy responds, you're not even showing, which I think is another men being pregnant is hilarious joke, because if that played out exactly the same, but Jimmy was a cis woman, it wouldn't be a joke. with it. There was a show last year, Upload, that did a whole terrible, protracted scene around the joke of a man being pregnant, ignoring the reality of trans men entirely. I talked about that in episode 54 in Trans Representation in 2023 Media Part 3, TB Part 2. When a cis woman hands a cis man a baby and he asks what to do if the baby gets hungry, she says, "You've got nipples, whip out a titty." A man with breasts and breastfeeding, so hilarious, can you even imagine? And here's the thing. The show is about mental health and forgiving ourselves and others and is generally positive and uplifting. But look at all those stealth transphobic jokes that work their way into it. I should mention, this show is from the same folks who made Ted Lasso, which you can hear me talk about back in episode 54, because that show was called, quote, the kindest show on TV, and it also had a lot of stealth transphobic jokes. These folks keep making shows about being good and kind humans, but can't see their own implicit transphobia, and it keeps making me feel like their kindness is reserved only for cis people.
Mm-hmm.
I do have really complicated feelings about shrinking in general. I think
Me too.
those stealth jokes make almost more sense in Ted Lasso, where you're talking about sports and a very male-centered sort of thing.
But a lot of them are made by the women in that show.
But it's like, in Shrinking, it's just taken to a worse, lazy extreme. It's just, I have a hard time watching.
Again, sometimes that show is really funny. You could be so much funnier than
funny, but also sometimes the funny is cruel. And it just bounces around in this really weird way.
I have complicated feelings on Shrinking too, because for all the reasons that you said, and then also the vibe of the show is weird to me, because on some level I really kind of like it, and I find it kind of cozy to put on. Where it's like I and less even for what it's about, but it's what I kind of like about it is that there's a kind of found family aspect to it, of there's all of these people that are kind of in each other's lives. They hang out in each other's kitchens, they're talking to each other, and in today's day and age, especially since they live in the suburbs, we don't get that often anymore. In real life, we don't have these we're all sort of atomized in our houses and our suburban homes, kind of like what I saw the TV Glow was talking about. We don't have these communal connections as much anymore. So it's actually really cozy for me to have a show that shows a communal connection being found in this way that I really like. But then it does really weird stuff, like the implicit transphobia stuff. Also the ethic, and the show kind of wrestles with it, but not really in a very
the ethics of their mental health stances. The
way he handles mental health, the way they address a lot of it. It's like this is unethical, but it works, so I guess it's fine. And if any real life doctor did this, it would be awful, legitimately awful. And the show, I don't think not that the show needs to stop and be hey, this is bad, okay, just so you know. I don't need shows to be ethically perfect, but the show makes weird gestures towards it, but doesn't really wrestle with it in an interesting way. So it's it's a weird thing where it's it's a show that has this veneer of coziness and even has an ethos that I really like, but the moment by moment bits of it are just uncomfortable at different times.
Silo Season 2, 0. Is this show still a remarkable trans allegory? I believe so. Will I do another full write-up on it, like the unintentional trans allegory of Silo deep dive that began in episode 36 of this show? I very well might. We shall see. There were some moments that felt almost intentionally trans, as in Season 1, so my gears are definitely turning. No out trans or non-binary people are involved with making it, however, as far as I know.
This show, I don't want to spoil because I've read the books, but there's a thing in the books. Have you read the books? I don't know if you have.
I have not. You read.
I read the first one.
All right. Yeah. I will not spoil. There's a thing. So Season 2 follows this kind of cuts across the first and second book. There's things from the second book is doing, there's things from the first book is doing. There's a big thing introduced at the beginning of book 2 that is concurrent with events happening in this season that I was really excited for the show to do, and it looks like they're not going to do it until probably Season 3, and I get why they did it, but I'm I want that to be out there because there's a whole layer. I want to have a conversation with you specifically about it because there's an interesting layer to the trans stuff. Could be read. The book doesn't really grapple with it, but I like what the book does, but it doesn't do it in a trans way. But given your discussion on Silo, I'm curious for when the show brings that piece in to hear your take on how that'll affect it and how they handle it. So like
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to it, but now that we're recording this, it'll probably be done by the time this comes out, but I think we're
It
on
will,
episode 8
yes.
or whatever. But at this moment, that big thing has not been shown yet, so I can't talk about it. But let me put it this way: put a pin in it because I want to discuss with both of you
Okay,
when
yes.
that thing gets revealed.
I'm
My
very
guess it'll probably
excited.
be like a season finale thing, and then be dealt with more in season 3. So
Okay.
So I'm planning to reread the first book and the second at least. So
We will talk. I'm very excited.
most people hate the second book the most of the 3. It's my personal favorite, but that's
Okay.
because I'm a weirdo dork. So
You're in good company.
yeah.
Skeleton Crew, Season 1, 0. I really love that show, though.
Oh
It
my
feels
God.
like an 80s
Fun.
movie in the
Very
best
fun.
way. Slow Horses, Season 1, 0. In one episode, some right-wing bigots are sitting in a house with someone they abducted, and one comes in and looks at a carton of milk by the tea. Yes, there's tea even for bigots. It's a very British show. He says, "Oh, you got milk." And the cranky leader dude replies with, "No, he lactated it." Another joke about lactating men. And yeah, these are literal bad guys, but it wasn't making fun of them for being ignorant and bigoted. It was a joke about how funny it would be if a man lactated, and hey, some trans men do. Very, very tired of this crap. In another episode, a character is about to show off his hacking prowess and says, "Ladies, there are 2 women and a man with him." The man speaks up and says, "And gentlemen." And the first guy looks at him and pointedly says, "Ladies," misgendering for humor because it's just so funny, isn't it? Come on.
I mean, that guy is a terrible.
He is.
He's a terrible
but it's still a
person.
joke.
Yes,
It's still a joke.
but it is to demonstrate that he's a terrible person, and we can demonstrate.
You can do
that
that
in
other
different
ways.
ways.
Yes.
Well, you can do it other ways that isn't like. I think the issue with it is like we're still meant to laugh at it as the
Yeah,
audience.
exactly.
I think that's the problem.
That's
It's like
the
when
problem.
you're showing the like. I think the best example I usually give is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, because they make transphobic jokes on that show too. But the joke is you are supposed to laugh at those people, not laugh along with them.
Right,
Like
right.
their ideas are dumb. Like in Always Sunny, their ideas are dumb. Their thoughts are dumb. What they're saying is dumb. You are laughing at them even when they're saying transphobic things. And usually the empathy lies with like the trans person or the other people in the situation. Whereas in this moment in the show, they're making a joke and they're saying, yeah, he's bad, and they're putting a joke there, but they're kind of also going like, but you kind of want to laugh at it, don't you? Like that's the kind of implicit
Exactly.
idea. So
Exactly. Slow Horses Season 2, 0. The boss at MI5 is a lady who everyone calls ma'am. One of the enforcers at MI5 is arguing with someone under her command, and she dismisses the enforcer, and the guy under her command smiles and nods at the enforcer and calls him ma'am. Ugh, you did it again. Stop it, stop it. Slow Horses Season 3, 0. In one episode, a man knees another man in the groin, and when the victim reacts in pain, the attacker says something to the effect of, "That didn't hurt, you've got no balls," with the implication that you're not a man without testicles, but hey, that's a lot of trans men. Sigh. In another episode, a cis male character says to another cis male character, "Hold on to your tits," when he's about to drive fast.
Man,
These
they do
jokes
it
are
so many
insidious,
times.
and they are everywhere.
Yeah, wow. Dang.
Slow Horses Season 4, 0. No jokes about us this time. Oh ho, how sad is it that that is progress. And I want to add again, I love this show a lot. It also makes a lot of bad gender jokes that are implicitly transphobic. 2 things can be true.
Yep. I put the show on one of my favorite shows of the year, season 4. And also,
Yeah.
without spoiling for listeners, season 4, you could read some trans allegory in that with the main character and the villain of the season, if you really wanted to. Yeah, like, I don't want to spoil that season, but it's also
I could see it a little.
yeah, with also Hugo Weaving. I mean, Matrix vibes too. So
Somebody Somewhere Season 3, 1. Fred Rococo is back as a main supporting character played by trans man Murray Hill. He's so great, as always, but he did feel a little bit underutilized this season. Fred Rococo spinoff When. He's my favorite part of the show.
I've never seen that one.
Star Trek Discovery Season 5, 3. Non-binary character Adira is still a main cast member played by non-binary actor Blue Del Barrio. Trans man character Gray returns for a couple episodes and is still played by trans man Ian Alexander. Another character with they pronouns briefly talks to someone about drag racing. In another episode, there's an alien species that has 3 genders, and the third uses they-them pronouns. This was the queerest and least white Star Trek show, but it's done now and I'm sure going to miss it. It was the first to really live up to all of Trek's inclusive ideals in terms of cast.
And yeah, I also really liked too that Adira and Gray's stories were not centered on them being trans, and also getting to see a trans relationship.
Yeah.
Because like usually representation you see of trans relationships are like trans people in relationships with cis folks, which does obviously very clearly happen.
Sometimes.
Yeah, every so often, you know. But then also you don't really get a lot of representation of like trans people in relationships with other trans folks, and like me.
It is
Like
very
my
rare.
fiance is also trans, so yeah, it was nice to see that. Don't necessarily have thoughts on their storyline this season with that, but I feel like it would have been something. The show got unceremoniously canceled, like they didn't know they were going to get canceled. So I have a feeling they probably would have come back to it. So I don't want to blame the show too much for a storyline that they probably wanted to have more discussion on. But it is sad that it kind of ends on the two characters like breaking up, and I think that that's fine. Like it's complicated because they break up, and it's a healthy breakup too. It's not like a mean breakup or anything. It's just they drift apart, which I think is a healthy thing to show. I just wish we had gotten more time with them together on screen, and I think like the show would have given us more discussion of that going forward, but obviously they were canceled. So
yeah. And I should mention, if you've not listened to my past episodes on Transrep, that in the past, the show specifically discussed Adira being non-binary and talking about pronouns, and Gray went through a sort of pseudo transition in Star Trek-y terms, but it was all right there on screen, and so it was really great.
And makes reference that they had a actual like gender transition too.
Yes.
There's a passing line. It's like, oh, this is just like my transition. So like not only weird sci-fi transition, but an actual transition too. So
Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, 0. Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, 1. 0, that's the character's name, is still in the main cast and is non-binary, but is played by a cis actor. But also, Zero's story this season is a trans allegory, and I can tell you it was definitely intentional because it's what Susan and I were brought in to help them with and consult on. We worked on a Star Trek. Hell yeah.
Woo! Hell yeah. That is the dream. That is the dream.
It is. It is. It is the dream.
And I will say, from my perspective, I really loved that story of Zero, like having to find like wanting a body and getting to experience sensation, but also like what I'm just gonna rant at you all really quick because I know you didn't write it, but you consulted on it. But I really like the idea of like Zero's body aging, which is something you don't often get in discussions on trans people, because something I'm dealing with right now is like I transitioned and I got to the body and life that I wanted, but now I'm also growing older. So like, oh, I have aches and pains now. And so it's like growing older in this body that I wanted, but it's also like, oh, now it's like, oh, getting older too. So it's this interesting sort of like, oh, I have the body I want, but now it's aging too. So I really liked that. That's something, again, you don't often see, and it was really cool to see in a Star Trek. So yeah.
Well, all credit for that to the writers. All we did was read their script and say, hey, we could tweak this, we could do that. And we had a meeting with them before they even wrote them to discuss, because they told us what their plan was. And we're like, here's a good way you could do it. So, that was really cool.
That was really good. Also, just to jump back, we went Star Trek Lower Decks 0.
Yeah.
I will say, I have read overtly Tendi as a trans character, both literally and allegorically. I'll do this really quick because I'll say why.
Yes, I'm fascinated.
So
tell me.
I love Tendi, so yes,
I love her too.
Metaphorically, let me put it this way. Metaphorically, she left her society where she is told to be the mistress of the Winter constellations to enact violence on people, and she was assigned assassin at birth. But chose, like she said, I do not want this. I am going to leave and go and join Starfleet and choose my own identity. I don't want to have this name assigned to me, this dead name, and have it be assigned to me. And so she left, and like there's that like not wanting what's assigned to you and choosing your own path. Also, she has said numerous times throughout the series that she does not have the pheromones that a lot of cis Orion women have, because they make clear in Star Trek Enterprise, and it's referenced throughout Lower Decks.
The women have
That's right.
Have these pheromones that can control men. Problematic in its own way. Star Trek Enterprise handled that really badly. But Lower Decks makes references that like the Orion women have that, but Tendi continually, whenever it comes up, it's like we don't all have those pheromones. And my read on that is she is a trans woman who does not have those pheromones, and the show never says, "Oh, I don't have those because I'm trans." It's just like I'm still a woman. We don't all have those pheromones, which I kind of like as a thing. So there's all of that element of it. And then this season in particular, she goes back home and like it's her family coming to accept her on her own terms. Like you wanted to go and join Starfleet and doing that. So like liked that in there as well. So there's all of those metaphorical things and the literal elements of it. And I will say this, I have ranted these exact thoughts to Mike McMahon.
Yeah.
And like I've talked to him about it because we've like had drinks and talked together, and he has told me is like I think about that when I'm writing Tendi now, and I think your read on her is correct. So like that's not confirmation. It's not saying it's thing.
It's not official.
So he should do like I love Mike. He's amazing. He's a good friend. I adore him. Make it literal, Mike. Do it. I would adore you for it. That being said, there is a cis writer having some level of awareness that trans people read themselves into this character. So and acknowledges that he thinks that is a very good read. So I do like that. So
that is excellent. I am so glad that you.
I love that for Tendi.
Yes, me too. Now I love her even more.
Tendi's such a great character.
I love Tendi so much. Like yeah.
Superman and Lois season 4 0. We Are Lady Parts season 1 0. So this show is about an all-Muslim woman punk band, which is amazing. But one of their songs is called Voldemort Under My Headscarf. Now listen, it's not about Harry Potter shit. It's about people who are afraid of a hijab like there's something evil underneath it. But they say his name like 20 times and drop Harry Potter house names in too. And as a trans woman, that is absolutely no fun to watch, which is sad because it's actually a good song. And it
comes up many times.
It does. In the pilot, a cis lady asks another cis lady, "Why are you such a boner killer? Ha ha, women with penises, that old hilarious chestnut."
Mm-hmm.
In episode 2, the same character calls her cis lady friend bro, but there is a lot of this through the entire series. I suspect it's true to the culture. It is set in the UK, but there is also just a ton of it, saying things to each other like "nice one, man," or multiple times they refer to each other as lads. We Are Lady Parts season 2 1. There's yet another song with a Harry Potter reference, and this show is made in and set in the UK, and they have to be even more aware of J.K. Rowling's transphobia, right? If you know that and you're still including Harry Potter references, that's pretty bad. Of course, I have no way to know if they're actually aware of Rowling's hatred or not. Non-binary actor Libby Mai is in one episode playing Shell, though the character's gender is never mentioned. Now here's something weird. In episode 3 of season 2, there's a Martina Navratilova reference when a millennial lesbian says she had posters of her on her bedroom wall as a kid. I'm not sure the timing there even lines up right for when millennials were kids and Navratilova was popular in the world of tennis, but Navratilova is also a known transphobe now. Given this, and the repeated Harry Potter references, it's got me feeling wary and a little bit suspect. It could all still be coincidental, but there could also be someone behind the scenes who shares some views with some famous transphobes.
And it's a really good show.
It is.
It says a lot of great things, but like there's this huge blind spot here about this.
And it's so hard because how many shows do you get with like it's about like 5 Muslim women? Right. You know, it's so rare.
About their experiences,
and it's so good and it's so funny, but it's
yeah. I've never seen it. I should watch it. Should check it out. But yeah, interesting.
What if season 2 0? What if season 3 0? One cis woman calls a group of 3 other cis women guys, and they're all from alternate realities. So I guess dudes are just so good that words for them get applied to everyone in every universe. So that's cool.
Like we can go anywhere in the multiverse, but still there's always patriarchy.
Right?
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows season 6 0. There's one joke about a man with a lady's haircut. Ha ha, funny, right? Come on. The show's so much better than a joke that low. There is also a Harry Potter joke. Come on. Like, even if you don't know about JK, it makes me wonder if you don't know, or if you do know and you agree with her, please just stop referencing her for the love of all that is good in the world. The penultimate episode features Coney Island carny vampires, and one is a bearded lady. She has no lines, but at least she isn't played for a joke, though she does appear with a troupe of carnival sideshows, which is bad. We're not freaks for your amusement.
This was actually what I was thinking of earlier when we started talking about Harry Potter references.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were going to get into it because I was watching this show. I'm like, oh, I made a Harry Potter reference. And it's just like, man, this show, which is so like has such a queer vibe to it
Right?
throughout all of it. Yeah, it's like those three jokes that you mentioned are like, the show is so much better than because I love this show, one of my favorites.
So do I.
But
Same.
it's like
They're
you're
my
better
sweet
than this.
vampire babies, and they deserve
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to the end of my report. I mentioned back in part 1 of this 2024 Trans Rep in Media report in episode 97 that some other folks sent in some of their own reports for inclusion. So I'm going to mention those here. Please note that I have not personally seen these shows or movies, though I trust the people sending them did their best to be accurate. The lovely Duna sent in these. Acapulco Season 3, 0. Bodkin Season 1, 0. Constellation Season 1, 0. House of the Dragon Season 2, 2. Non-binary actor Emma Darcy has a lead role, though the character uses she, her pronouns. Abigail Thorne appears in this show as well in the season finale, playing a character that seems quite likely to continue into Season 3. She plays a woman pirate that's respected, feared, and has many wives. There's mud wrestling. I am suddenly interested in this show. Abigail's character is not mentioned as trans, but the show sets expectations that her character is a man so that her reveal is a surprise. And that's not great, kind of feels like it feeds into the surprise trap aspect a bit. But again, I've not seen it myself, so I can't really comment on if it fell into or definitely avoided that trope.
So I'll add to this really quickly. First things first. Again, I know Abigail Thorne. She has been in the movie. And actually,
Right.
weird thing with House of the Dragon, we had an original film date for my movie Identities that got pushed because of the SAG strike and stuff going on with that.
Yeah.
But the initial date was the same time that she was going to be filming House of the Dragon because they're a different guild over there, so she was allowed to do it. But she was going to have to green screen herself in. So I was like, I knew ahead of time because she hadn't announced that point. I'm like, oh, you're in House of Dragon. I get it. You can't be in the movie until green screen you in. But like, man, that sucks, but also amazing. So like, that was funny. But also I'll say this because I have to be careful because like we've chatted about stuff and I don't want to get Abigail in any issues or anything like that. So from my analysis of the show, what it came across as to me as cis people not knowing how to write a trans character.
Yeah.
And there's like some weird, like clearly they want to have some moments of like this other culture that we're encountering has different views on gender, but it's not fully fleshed out. And so comes across as like, what does this mean for their society? But like, there's an intentionality there of like, oh, there's different ideas in gender in different culture. Good. Did you think through what it would mean for this culture? Not really, but at least there's an intent there to like acknowledge it as well.
Yeah.
And I also like it is very possible that like they were not entirely aware of how well they were going to flesh out this character going forward into potential future seasons.
Sure.
So hopefully if the character continues, they'll have more opportunity to correct that.
And maybe bring some trans writers in. That would be the best way.
Mm-hmm.
A Murder at the End of the World Season 1. 1. Non-binary actor Emma Corrin stars but plays a cis woman. Outer Range Season 1, 0. Outer Range Season 2, 0. Duna said it seems like there's some going out of the way to set up a couple transphobic lines. As an example, there's a man named Trudy who seemingly exists just so someone can grumble that's a goddamn woman's name, and then is rarely seen again. Well, that's not great. Palm Royale Season 1, 0. The Power Season 1, 2. Episode 3 introduces Sister Maria, a trans woman character played by trans actress Daniela Vega. Maria explains her coming out story and how their convent for wayward girls was formed by a group of nuns who were excommunicated from the church for standing up for justice during the AIDS epidemic. After this episode, her character is still around but not featured much. Episode 6 reveals a character to be an intersex person who has the power. He explains that he identifies as a guy, played by Nico Haraga, who is not openly intersex as far as we know. Presumed Innocent Season 1, 0. Time Bandits Season 1, 0. Velma Season 2, 1. There's a non-binary character, Amber, voiced by non-binary actor Sarah Ramirez. They/them pronouns are used. There's a scene where men and women are being separated, and Amber loudly asks where they should go if they aren't either. There is a secret facility where one character puts people's brains in a jar so they can figure out who they really are while they have no outside influences, then puts them back in their body. In the examples shown, clearly some of them come out of that experience happily queer. This is kind of glossed over, and Duna felt it deserved more attention. I would concur. That's a very trans premise.
Mm-hmm.
The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, Season 1, 0. And then I got one report from my fab friend Jen Wallace on X-Men 97 Season 1. 1. The character of Morph is non-binary and uses they-them pronouns and is played by genderqueer actor J.P. Karliak. Jen says that everyone knows the X-Men are a queer allegory, but she feels this season was an intentional trans allegory. Okay, so where are we at with the totals? Just for recent movies and seasons of television, I, a trans woman screenwriter, saw 26 movies and 42 seasons of TV in 2024, and in our totals we have 23 trans or non-binary actors, 25 trans or non-binary characters, 31 jokes about trans people, and I counted 4 instances of bad representation and 10 good. Keep in mind the joke total would have been much higher if I'd counted every instance of jokes about Ava's big hands on hacks. When we add in the reports, Duna and Jen sent me the new totals for 26 movies and 57 seasons of TV in 2024. We have 29 trans or non-binary actors, 29 trans or non-binary characters, 31 jokes about trans people. This shows representation is still not equal to the jokes made about us, even if most of those jokes were implicit. That is terrible. And the news is sadly even worse, because in 2023, these were the numbers across 31 movies and 44 seasons of television. I found 31 trans or non-binary actors, 20 trans or non-binary characters, 16 jokes about trans people. In 2022, the first year I did a trans rep report, these were the numbers. Across 22 movies and 62 seasons of television, I found 22 trans people, 15 jokes about trans people. And so what you see looking at these numbers is that the actual trans people showing up and actual trans characters in our media hasn't really changed, but the amount of jokes at our expense, even if implicit, has dramatically risen. I wish I could say I was surprised, but given the propaganda war the Republicans have waged against us and the Democratic Party as a whole barely standing up for us if they even do it at all, this is what you get. It feels like gender norms are going back to being more rigid. Quote-unquote deviation from those arbitrary, restrictive, and reductive norms is being further ridiculed and punished. And while the trans rep numbers in what I've personally seen have remained somewhat steady, with the loss of Quantum Leap and Chaos and rarities like I Saw the TV Glow and People's Joker not happening that often, and the way trans and queer projects are routinely canceled, I fear next year's numbers will be grim indeed. Also, keep in mind that while the rep numbers were about the same, not all of that rep was good, and some did active harm to us, on screen and off.
And it also should be said, too, here, I mentioned this earlier, I think in last week's podcast, not entirely sure I did, but like if you look at something like Disney, they are actively pulling back on trans rep. And when I say actively pulling back, I mean actively. Like there's a distinction between people just not greenlighting trans rep or things like that, but like Disney had 3 instances this year that we know of where they had opportunities like that were like with Inside Out where people were actively pushing to make it queer and they said no. And then they had 2 animated shows that had stories that weren't just like, oh, a trans character's there, but were like actively about trans themes that were taken out of rotation. The biggest one being Dino Girl?
Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, where like the episode was done. It is a complete done episode about trans people in sports. That is, it leaked online, and if you watch it, it is amazing and is like actually like a really good incisive commentary on the discourse around trans kids in sports specifically, and is an extremely beautiful story, and I highly recommend everyone go and look up that leaked episode. But it was pulled by Disney, and it's because they're cowards who don't want to actually like talk. They want to try and sell to the biggest audience because they want to make money, but we live in a fractionalized society, and they read the tea leaves of like, oh, culture's getting more regressive, so we can sell to more people by selling to like sell by letting the bigots sort of like get their say and like having racist representation and not talking about quote unquote political topics like trans people. So it is not only like you were talking about things like jokes about trans people getting more aggressive and trans rep getting pulled back, but it is an active, it's not just like a pseudo thing happening passively. It is an active decision by a lot of these major studios and corporations, and one that is reflective of the larger, sadly more conservative culture that we are going further and further into, and it's depressing.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the Pixar show that they pulled the other scene from.
I'll pull it up. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you go to my Bluesky and you scroll back through my media post, I've reposted it there. But
Win or
because
lose, win or lose,
the
what's it called?
win or lose, the animatic for it leaked, and an animatic, if you're not familiar with animation, is sort of like the storyboards put together, sometimes with music, maybe with dialogue, to give you an idea of what the finished animation will be. And they had gotten that far on this scene, and it's like 2 minutes, and there's no dialogue. It's just, and it's so beautiful. It's about this trans kid going in the bathroom and what they see in the mirror and people being kind to them while they're trying to figure this out. And it was so well done. And I'm like, any kid would understand this. You're telling a kid what it's like for trans kids right now. And it's perfect and it's beautiful and there's nothing wrong with it. And it was such a great little scene, and they just pulled it out, and it's heart-wrenching. It's terrible. We need that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And what's upsetting too about the Moon Girl episode is like,
Yeah.
there's a good thing in the sense that Moon Girl, the trans character that episode is about, is present throughout the entire series. So like there is trans rep, but like there's no confirmation of the character being trans until that episode, which is now pulled. So not only does that episode now pull out the explicit like discussion around a trans topic that a character is dealing with, it pulls out the confirmation of the trans character.
Right.
And it's doing the thing that Disney always does, which is like, oh, we'll have the character there tokenly in the background. So like maybe the trans people know, but everyone else can deny that they're there so that they don't upset the bigots.
And then all the trans kids watching don't get to see themselves in that world represented and be like, it's okay to be you. You exist in this world too, you know, and that's terrible.
Yep, exactly.
Can I also blame Yellowstone for this a little bit?
Maybe.
Because I feel like Hollywood, the wheels move very slowly.
They sure do.
And especially with things like animation and shows, like all of this moves very slowly. And I feel like it was 2 to 3 years ago when Yellowstone hit it really big and we started to hear, we want middle America pitches. We want, they were directly looking for more conservative pitches, working their way through development. And also in the past 2 years, like, the backlash against trans people has gotten stronger and stronger, and with more conservative shows in development, this all affects society in a big way.
It does. But you know, that also really frustrates me because you know who lives in middle America? Lots of trans and queer people. Like it's not.
Thank you, somebody somewhere.
We
for
live
saying,
there
hey,
too, right?
Midwestern
is full of queer and
do
trans
exist.
people. But yeah, so it's maddening to me. Like our art can change the world, right? There's that whole thing I've mentioned many times in this show about Modern Family. Have been articles written about how it moved the needle on marriage equality because it presented just a normal gay couple as part of their show along with everybody else. And it changed so many people's minds because it was on a major network. It was a major network sitcom seen all over the country by millions of people. And they're like, oh yeah, that makes a good point. Gay men are just gay people. They're just human beings that love each other. It's no big deal.
Say liberal Hollywood, and come on.
It's that thing of like most of the conservative like narrative around trans people is able to be pushed because most people don't know trans people.
Exactly.
They don't actually, like, most of it is just being sold on lies of what trans people are. It's like they're coming for your kids, they're really narcissistic, like all of these things that are like these narratives, like they're just people in dresses, they're really violent. And like the way to break that down is to meet a trans person, because meeting a trans person will break that down really well, because you'll see an actual trans person there. But most of the time, because of either like they don't have any trans people around them, or they don't know that they know trans people around them.
Exactly, that's the case. Yeah.
The best way that people can encounter that is through art. And so when art is doing things like what we talked about a few weeks ago with Amelia Perez, like perpetuating these underlying narratives, it pushes this as like, this is actually true about trans people. And it bolsters these narratives that people have around this. Whereas you actually have trans people involved in depicting these things and writing these things and articulating ourselves, then that can help to change people's minds about it. And it needs to be done in both ways, where it's like we get to tell our stories centralized and get to be part of the narrative and say like, this is how we see the world. And also alongside ones where we're just part of the flavor of the show, whereas like it's an ensemble story about other stuff and we're just a character that's there that gets to exist alongside everyone else, like the Modern Family example with gay marriage. Like they were just a gay couple doing like fairly normalized stuff alongside straight couples. And so you need both of those things concurrently. And unfortunately, more what we're seeing is just like jokes, as you're saying, like jokes around trans people getting more and more, and stories written by cis folks around trans people that perpetuate these narratives of getting pushed more and more, even when they're selling themselves as, oh, so sympathetic and kind and understanding. It's still pushing these same narratives. So yeah.
And also, I just want to remind you folks listening, remember that Heartstopper alone makes up almost a quarter of all trans rep I saw last year, and Chaos makes up another quarter. If you took those two shows out, the numbers are slashed by 50%, and that's really dismaying.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for being here, Jessie. This has been an absolute great talk. You're wonderful.
Yeah, you are wonderful as well, and thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking to you both on the mic and off the mic. So you both are amazing, and thank you for having me.
Aw, yeah. Cis writers, producers, executives, publishers, and editors, you can help fix this. Art can change hearts and minds, and we need better and more trans rep across the board. I'm tech available. Hire us and make it happen. We can fix this together.
Mm-hmm.
Tilly Bridges and Transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges, with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. The written essay version of this week's topic and all past topics is available at tillystranstuesdays.com. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Bluesky and on Mastodon at tillybridges at mastodon.social. And you can find Susan on those at Susan L. Bridges. You can find Jillian at Audio Jillian on Bluesky. You can join the Tillyverse Discord server by following the link at the very bottom of tillystranstuesdays.com. We hold regular watch parties for the Matrix films and other trans movies where I do a live Q&A, and it's blossomed into a wonderfully supportive, compassionate, kind community of friends. We'd love to have you join us. If you'd like to keep up with all the writing that Susan and I do, you can sign up for our newsletter at birdguestbroadcast.com. If you enjoy this show, please take a moment to leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. The largest segment of our listeners find the show there, and more reviews equals a higher profile, which means it will reach more of the people who need it. Thank you for your support. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.